Want to take a look at some thoughts and go back and visit again a part that we looked at last Sunday relative to Peter and also in John chapter 21. The reason I want to do this morning and taking a look at John 21, I mentioned last week that John 21 is a chapter that devotes itself to, I call it the recovery of Peter. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because when you take a look at the first few verses of John 21, it's going to become plain. So turn there with me as we take a look at this. John 21, we'll begin in verse 1. Read most of the chapter here this morning because I want you to get the feeling that Peter felt. Okay? Because as he does this, as we're able to kind of get his feelings, we're able to see why he says what he says in the part that we're going to look at in 1 Peter chapter 1. So kind of watch what's going on and see the setting of Peter as we take a look at this, and I think it'll start to make sense to you. After these things, Jesus manifested himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and he manifested himself in this way. And there were together Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus and Nathanael of Cana of Galilee and the sons of Zebedee and the two others of the disciples. And Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They all said to him, "Well, we'll go with you." And they went out and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the day was now breaking, Jesus stood on the beach, yet the disciples did not know it was Jesus. Jesus therefore said to them, "Children, do you not have any fish, do you?" And they said, "No." And he said, "Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you'll find a catch." And they cast and then they were not able to bring up the haul in it because of the great number of fish. And the disciples therefore whom Jesus loved said to them, "Peter, it's the Lord." And so when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put his outer garment on, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. But the other disciples came in the little boat, as they were not far from land, but about 100 yards away, dragging a full net of fish. And when they got out on the land, they saw the charcoal fire already laid, and the fish placed on it, and bread. And Jesus said to them, "Bring up some of the fish which you have caught." And Simon Peter went out, drew the net to the land full of large fish, 153. And although there was so many, the net was not torn. And he said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now the disciples none of the disciples ventured to question him, "Who are you?" knowing that it was the Lord. And Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and the fish likewise. And now the third time, and this is now the third time that Jesus has manifested to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. So when they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these?" And he said to them, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And he said to them, "Tend my lambs." And he said to them again the second time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to them, "Shepherd my sheep." And he said to them the third time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" And Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know all things. You know I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Tend my lambs. Truly, truly, I say to you that when you were younger, you used to gird yourself and walk wherever you wished. And when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will gird you and bring you to where you do not wish to go." Now this he said, signifying by what kind of death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said to him, "Follow me." And Peter, turning around, saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them, and one also who had leaned back on his breast at the supper, and said, "Lord, who is it that betrays you?" And Peter, therefore, seeing him, said to Jesus, "Lord, what about this man?" And Jesus said to him, "If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me." The Lord sets the stage here for Peter. You have to understand, as Peter has denied the Lord 3 times, and the remorse that he felt from doing that he's going fishing. He's going back to his roots. He's going back to where he come from. And the Lord knows that. And the Lord knows if he leaves Peter in that condition, he's not going to be the effective tool that I need him to be. And so he challenges him 3 times. Do you love me? 3 times, Peter says yes. But the challenge is nonetheless there, and Peter understands that meeting that he has with the Lord and how genuine that was. And like we said last Sunday, at no time did the Lord ever said, see, I told you were going to do that. I told you he was going to. The Lord never mentioned that. The Lord knows, the Lord knew, I got work for you to be doing. And in just a few days, it's going to start on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. I need you to be ready to do that. And so he helps Peter get over this hump of self-pity, of feeling bad, understanding there's a job out here to get done, and I need to be about getting it done. Okay, now with that thought in mind, and with this is what takes place. As they meet and they've had that conversation, Peter writes in 1 Peter chapter 1, beginning at verse 3, where we pick up today. Now, understanding the setting, listen to these words. This is a phrase. This is all one phrase, and if we break it up, we're going to miss it. Okay? Beginning in verse 3, as Peter has already introduced himself as an apostle, as he's been thankful and expressed that to them, that may the grace of God and peace be yours to the fullest measure, the last part of verse 2. Then he says, Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his great mercy has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to obtain an inheritance which is imperishable and undefiled and will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you who are protected by the power of God through faith for the salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. Can you just not feel the feeling and the sense of importance that Peter puts on that phrase, particularly the part, according to the great mercy that he has given to me personally, Peter, but not only to me, but to you too. And Peter is bringing this up from the grassroots to understand the message that Jesus gave to him, that he understood in John 21, to understand now, not only am I the one that's a recipient of that, but you are too. Now, where does that go for you and me? We're reading the same words that Peter said. Does it not also make sense for us too? And that's exactly where this goes. Because as he says, he continues to talk about the great patience, the great mercy that God has given us, caused us to be born again to a living hope. Peter was sitting there talking to the Lord. He knew the Lord was alive. He sat there and had the conversation with him. He knew he was raised from the dead. Living hope. The same living hope that he shares with them, he shares with us. The same living hope that he shared with them is available to us. So Peter's sharing that with them, that the living hope is there through, not just because he's saying it, through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. To obtain an inheritance which is imperishable, undefiled, and will not fade away. We talked about those words Wednesday evening. What does inheritance mean? What do you get from that? We know what we normally think about. We think about something that is passed down to us as someone or our parents or whoever are passed away. It's something that we have inherited, that kind of thing. Does it mean the same?
Yeah.
Sure it does.
Heirs with Jesus Christ.
Exactly. That's the power that thing has. And we read these verses and we just say, oh yeah, another day in the office. Peter got it. Okay, Peter got it. Because he was a direct recipient of it, sitting right there having breakfast with the Lord. We should get it too. We should get it too. It's powerful. It's something that we can put our hands on, that we can it's as good as it's better than having it written down on a piece of paper, because God had it written. There's no mistaking about it. God had it written for us. An inheritance which is imperishable, undefiled, will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you, who are protected by the power of God through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. Have you ever thought you were protected by God? It don't get any better than that. It does not get better than that. And if we don't understand it, we need to just stand back and look a minute. God is there for us, no matter what. And that's what Peter's trying to convey to these folks. We've already talked about the setting of the time and what it was going to be for these folks to physically, or maybe to endure hardship like you and I have never known. But he says, God's got you. Don't worry about it. However it comes down, you're going to win, as long as you hold on to the Lord. Now, is that any different for us? Same message is there. Same problems come up. We talked about that when we studied in the book of James. Peter knew that here. You're going to have issues. You're going to have problems. And they'll come to you and at you from any direction, and most of the time, every direction that you're not expecting it. And it can be really, really tough to deal with. Go ahead.
There's never been a bubble around anybody that served God from the beginning of time.
Amen. You bet. You bet. Go ahead. Did you finish?
Yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off. Sorry. But you're exactly right. There's no protection. None of us have a guarantee. Go ahead.
Well, what Bella said, and I just add this here, that's what Satan said to God about Job. You build a hedge around him.
Right.
And what Satan was saying to God, you have put him in a bubble, and he serves you simply because of what all you have gave.
Right. Right. And as soon as you take that away,
coming from the heart.
yeah, and as soon as you take that away, he's going to forsake you. Now, again, the same rules apply. Can that be us?
Very much.
It can be. You betcha. You betcha. And that's what's so incredibly important about this letter. Because it's just that kind of encouragement and that kind of hanging in there that Peter says you're going to need, we're going to need. We're going to need. Okay? And that's where Peter is going with this. Okay, now in the workbook, as we pick up there with question B, how can faith keep us or guard or protect us? What did you write down?
If it's studying keeps us guarded, prayer protects us.
Okay. Okay.
Where were we at exactly now?
I'm sorry, page 50 at the very top there, letter B.
Okay.
I just put them by the power of God.
Okay, power of God. What about the power of God? What does that do for us? I mean, we read that. I mean, and you're right. But what does it really mean?
He controls everything.
Yeah, he
He
does.
said, we are kept by the powers of God through faith. The faith that we demonstrate toward God, and I go back to what Paul said to the Corinthians, there's not a temptation that is taken us which is not common to man. And then we're instructed in Hebrews that Christ was tempted in every way like we were.
Mm-hmm.
And so Christ is able to keep that which we've committed to him. If we commit our life to him, then we are kept by the powers of God because of those promises that God has made, that I'll not tempt you above that which you're able to bear.
Good. Correct. Go ahead.
He's offering to be there with you and help you make those decisions when they come up. You know what I'm saying? He's offering that assistance to you, and if you'll use God when you make those decisions, instead of just making them on your own, it's gonna turn out a heck of a lot better, you know what I'm saying?
I love the way you phrase it. If we allow God to do it. A lot of times we get into the situation when all else fails, we'll ask God. We've tried everything we know to do, now we'll ask God. Totally backwards. Totally backwards. And like you said, if we put God in the loop at the very beginning, then a lot of the decisions we have to make and a lot of things we have to decide become a lot easier. Good point. Good point. All right, other thoughts?
You know something about, the one neat thing about the Bible, when people try to discount it, I mean, this book was written, well, the New Testament 2,000 years ago. I guess it's spanned over several thousand years. But
Right.
all these problems that people go through and that are wrote down, they're common to all men, all countries, all cultures, all times. How can somebody just sit and write that?
Right.
Well, that's why John said there's three things that man is tempted with. Pride of life, the pride of the eyes, or the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh.
Right.
Pride of life.
Right.
So
And that-
everybody has those ingredients in them. And they, as Belva said, they deal with the same problem.
And those three cover everything, and no matter what your age is. No matter what your age is, those three cover that area. Good parts, good thoughts. I wrote down with that, knowing the promises that God has made. You can search this book from cover to cover. Any promise that God has made and has been fulfilled exactly the same way He said that it would. The promise He's made to us will happen. God has promised it. It's going to take place. And so it will happen when His time is correct. All right, the next part of that, then in question 7, what are we kept? Unto what are we being kept? Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
I put salvation.
That's what I put down too. With salvation, along with that, I think they both work hand in glove. But my point is, again, looking at it, do we fully ever appreciate what that word salvation means?
It's hard to comprehend.
I go back, and that's why I wanted to look at John 21 a while ago. Peter puts a picture there for us to see. If anybody felt like the scum of the earth, he would have. Because of denying the Lord and denying that he ever knew the man. Yet on the other side, just a few verses ahead of that, he said, I'll die for you. But when the rubber hit the road and when the push come to shove, he denied the Lord 3 times. How would that make you feel? Just like Peter felt. You let the man down who's been with you and guided you and trained you and did all, you let him down clear to the bottom because of my weakness, because of what I did. So Peter is painting that picture. He understands what salvation is all about. Go ahead.
So, we're talking about Peter. The Lord tells Peter, Peter, before the cock crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter said, though all men will deny you, I will not, I'll die for you. As you was talking about, as Jesus recovers Peter, how many times does he ask him, does he love him? And I just wonder if that could have made Peter realize that, once I said 3 times, I didn't know, man. Here I'm saying 3 times now, I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But,
That's a good, I never thought of it that way. But yeah, he denies him 3 times and now he affirms it 3 times that he loves him.
yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's powerful. That's really good.
No, when he denies him 3 times, it says immediately the cock crows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the other apostles?
We don't have record of all of that. We
There
just
was some there as well as Peter.
Yep. Peter was the one, though, that we typically see as the outspoken one. He's the one who typically stands up and makes the position, and the other ones, follow in behind him, but he's generally the spokesman of most of that. So, and of course, then, too, we get into Acts, and he starts out the book of Acts and then fades off in chapter just about 10 and then kicks over. So we have really 2 accounts of really two of the 12 or 13.
Well, Peter makes his I think his stand when he tells Jesus, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God."
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus realizes or recognizes that flesh and blood didn't reveal this to Peter, it was the Father.
Right.
So Peter had it's not that he was above or better than any of them, but he was sort of the outgoing one, the one here that would stand out, because when he makes that confession, Jesus said, "I'll give you the keys to the kingdom." And I think that's why Jesus is talking to Peter like this, because it seemed like at the beginning, you're going to be the one that's going to take the lead here. Not that you're going to keep the lead,
Right.
but you're going to take the lead in the beginning.
It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And he-
Peter was the rock.
I'm sorry?
Peter was the rock.
Right.
And when Jesus named him Peter from Simon, rock,
Right.
that's what Peter stood for.
Well,
Rock.
and that's what we were saying last week when the Lord met him, and it wasn't any "Hi, how are you?" It's like, "I'm going to change your name, and it's going to be to this," and it meant rock. Peter knew, or the Lord knew, what Peter could become, not what he was at the moment, but what he could become, and the tool that he would become in this. And so, there's no way the Lord wasn't going to let him down, and he didn't want Peter to be let down. So, go ahead.
Well, in the Bible, the Lord did a lot of name change.
Mm-hmm.
Abram to Abraham,
Right.
Sarai to Sarah, let's see, Jacob,
To Israel.
Israel. So there was a lot of name changing that you find that when somebody seemed to be somebody that the Lord was going to use in a particular way, it seemed like their name was changed.
Yep.
Saul becomes Paul,
Right.
and so.
Yep. A lot more importance put on the what the name meant,
Yeah.
what it meant, and so yeah.
Which he was a rock, not the rock.
Correct.
Which some people get mixed up.
Yeah.
They say.
Yeah, that opens up a whole nother story. Yeah, you bet. You bet. All right, so is there 7a there, is this salvation the same as the inheritance of verse 4?
Yeah.
I said yes. I said, yeah, it's yes, sir. That's what I thought. All right, question 8. In what do God's people greatly rejoice?
Future inheritance.
Okay, the inheritance, the salvation, and I hope we get this as he continues this section, basically from question 8 on down. He wants us to look at these answers. A lot of them,
He repeats himself.
yeah, he repeats himself, but he wants us to think about this personally on our behalf, on my individual. Do you feel that way? Do I feel this way? To make us stand back and think about just what we have. We're living here in 2018. We don't have these issues that Peter's talked about here, or will talk about. But we still have issues. And there's still things that challenge our faith, that challenge our following the Lord. And there's still things that we have to be on guard against. And so this is something we need to be greatly appreciative of the fact that we have this opportunity to be saved. Not only but we have it available to us to take advantage of. We need to be the ones taking advantage of it. Go ahead.
It goes to show too that nobody's perfect, including Peter.
Right.
And there was a point made, you know what I'm saying? Even though he denied Jesus and swore he wouldn't, was just warned he would do it, and said, "There's no way I would ever do it." But Jesus goes to show that nobody's perfect. You make mistakes or whatever, but it's time to step back up and do the right thing.
Exactly. And when you do, he's willing to forgive
Right.
and let you move forward.
Right.
That's huge. That's huge. Junior, you have something? Okay. I thought you was waving. Don't wave at me. Don't wave at me. All right. All right. All right. So that kind of wraps up that section really from verses 3 to 5, because that's all one phrase. And he gets set then, in light of that, as he's planted the seed here, talking about the blessing that God has given him according to his great mercy, all of those things. he gets set then to make the second sentence. Okay? And that picks up right here in verse 6 through 9. And it says, in this greatly rejoice, and he's talking about the salvation and everything he's just said in those 3 preceding verses. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials, that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And though you have not seen him, you love him, and though you do not see him now, but believe in him, you greatly rejoice with a joy inexpressible and full of glory, obtaining as the outcome of your faith the salvation of your souls. So as Peter puts this together in this next phrase, he's understanding, and he's just laid the groundwork saying, okay, these blessings you have, but now watch out what's fixing to come. And again, the same rules apply for you and me. For you and me. Because he talks about the great joy, the great things that they rejoice in are going to be temporary, though for a season. If need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations, that the trial of your faith may be much more precious than gold that perishes, though it be tried with fire. He's giving them to understand that the faith they have is more valuable than anything they can put their hand on here. Now, with that said, how easy is that to accept? Think about yourself. Think about us. Think about what we have, what God's given to us. And when the rubber hits the road and things come up, what are we going to do? What do we think we're going to do? Now, I love your point a minute ago. Peter thought, before he denied the Lord, there was going to be no way. But when it hit, it happened. He did. Now, before we get too caught up in ourselves and said, well, I'd never do that. Think about it. All I'm saying is that's where the author wants us to kind of think about this for a minute. In what were they in heaviness or grieved or distressed? Question 9.
Before we make the voting, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
My opinion is that Peter thought differently than what it really was. He had a sword with him when they come to get Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He used it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had intentions to fight a physical battle.
Right.
And when that changed, it was more than he was willing to die for.
Right.
Just he's willing to physically fight, but when it come down to it just being words or notion,
Mm-hmm.
I think Satan got the better of him there a little bit.
Sure. Are we any exception to that? No.
It's easier, even for a person going into battle, you give him a good weapon,
Sure.
and he might run to it. You take that away from him, he's defensive.
Sure. And I keep coming back to saying about myself, how is that different for me? It isn't. Not for a minute. I can drop the ball just as easily, thinking that I won't, but I can drop the ball just as easily as Peter did.
Our weapons are not carnal, as the Bible tells us. And most often, we retreat a lot quicker to something that it's even more important than physical things, but we'll run into physical danger as long as we think we're protected. Then the
Yeah.
opposite of that
Yeah.
is the most important thing, and we flee from it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Peter can get the big picture, I think, too, as with a lot of his followers. They thought it was going to be more of a physical thing. He's like, well, put your weapons away, and they're like, I don't think he saw the big picture.
And
Right.
I said, what's going on here?
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, and again, I think we get into this, and we've mentioned in other situations, other classes, the thing that clouds this whole thing, that messes a lot of it up, really, is our emotions. We're angry, or we're afraid, or we're whatever, but our emotions get in the way, and it messes up a decision that we should make. Go ahead.
Well, God had foretold that this was gonna happen. It needed to happen, it was supposed to happen.
Sure.
And him acting that way was in conflict with that and trying to keep that from happening. And that's why he was saying, Satan, Satan, get away from me or whatever, because you're in the way of what's been foretold, and it's going to happen anyway. And we've been foretold and told several things are going to happen too, and it's going to happen whether we like it or not.
Right. You bring up a great point, though. That's one to consider, and Linda and I were talking about it earlier this week. Now, before everybody's hand flies up and says, "Oh yeah," wait a minute. Okay. How many of you really believe there's a Satan out there? Okay. Good. Good. Because there is. And if you've got a question about it, you need to be looking some more into this book. Okay? Now, what I'm using that to talk about is the power that he has is amazing. If he would take on the Son of God one-on-one and challenge him, what do you think we're made out of? Nothing compared to that. And he's not afraid of that. What I'm getting at is he uses that in any kind of way, from any kind of direction, from those we would suspect to cause a problem or create an issue for me. And he'll use it. And use it well. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment before going further. In some cases, a person might think that knowing that the coming of Christ and his death and suffering being predestined or even foretold in the Bible was something that God set up and made happen in a particular way, that he particularly made Peter do this to fulfill it. We have to remember that the writer of this book, the inspiration of this book, knows the future. And when you do that, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You're not making something happen, you just
No, it's going to happen. Yeah.
There's a big difference there. You know, you don't have to make something happen to make it appear like you are.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have to understand that God doesn't make anyone sin, right?
It's our choice.
I just want to bring that point up because it's out there in the world, that belief's out there that you have no choice in how you live and stuff. You're either saved or not. And a lot of that plays into it. God has predestined you to be that way.
Well, what I want to get with your point, though, is the fact I understand what's out there. What I want us to understand what's in these walls right here. And it can happen to every one of us. And has. Okay? And has. And it's come at us from directions that we never anticipated. And we never thought about. But it happens. Peter says, hold on to your faith. Hold on because God has blessed you with that. You are protected by God. As long as you hold on.
That's why he's fellowship with Christians and people who are trying to serve the Lord, because they're more prepared to fight Satan when he does come at them to use them against you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. And it's up to us to use God as the tool to overcome all that.
It's the only tool.
He's the only tool. Exactly. All right. Okay. All right. As far as the verses that we read from 6 through 9, in question 9, in what were they in heaviness, grieved, or distressed about?
Temptations, I guess. Various trials.
again, put yourself in these same questions and understand that we're no exception to this. We're not in an exception at all. What was more precious than gold?
Trial in faith.
For faith.
You feel good with that? I mean, I know what the verse says, and that is the right answer. But do you feel good with it?
Well, we know how much we count on the Lord if we just wait on Him, and instead of jumping in and trying to fix it, we usually mess up.
Make it worse.
Yes.
Yes, you're absolutely.
The fact that gold perishes and it really accomplishes really nothing for you. Your faith will perish at the beginning or when Christ appears. But look what it's going to accomplish for you. All the riches of heaven.
How's gold purified?
By fire.
Exactly. Through the process of melting down and skimming off the impurities by fire. How are we made more precious? Exactly. Same way. The fire, the temptations, the trials that happen, and that's what Peter's trying to get them to understand. Now, this is one of those personal things again. Is your faith more precious than gold? And before everybody's hand flies up, yes. Is it?
Yes.
Is it? And it should be. I mean, I just want to challenge us to do more than just read this question and write down the word yes. Is it?
Is it more precious than, let's leave the fact of gold, I know what it represents, but just think about the worldly things that we enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's as precious as your soul.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
It's more precious than gold. Sometimes we sell it for less.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. No question about that. But who's done the selling? I have. When that happens, just like we were talking about there a while ago, I'm the weak link in the chain. I'm the one that messed up, not God. Not God. And that's why, I mean, we look at these questions, and Linda and I have talked about this as we were getting ready for the obvious answer is yes. My question to you, if it's yes, are you sure it's yes as far as you're concerned and as far as I'm concerned?
Who was it that got a little hungry and sold their birthright for a little bit of food?
Jacob, Esau. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of people that started out once as Christians that walked away. Many has.
Yeah, many has. Many has.
They sold the great thing, their inheritance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A little bit of
Now, he dials this in a little closer. We talk about the faith, and is our faith more precious than gold? I get it, okay? And then he goes down to the very end of that phrase, and he says, what about your faith? How do you feel about your faith? See what he's trying to get us to think about? I mean, we can go through and answer these questions. Hey, yes, we could do all that. But think about it. When the rubber hits the road and I'm out here being picked on or beat at or whatever relative to situations of today, do I let God guide my answers and guide what I do? Or do I cave in?
I just wonder what that feeling would be like. Given the opportunity, just to verbally say something to save your life or to end it. They say back in when the Christians were being persecuted by the kings and stuff over there, when it was really hard, they were the Catholics and the
Yes.
they said, what was that? The knights and stuff.
Right.
They went down killing them. All you had to do say, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't have nothing to do with that. I'm not part of that.
Now take it a notch tighter. Suppose they're standing there with a knife to your wife's throat,
Or your children.
asking you the question. What are you going to do? See my point? That's how it got. for these folks here that Peter was talking about. Now, you want to talk about a commitment? You want to talk about a decision to make? That's what they had to deal with. We have got nothing compared to what these folks endured, okay? But our decisions are nonetheless the same. We still need to be committed to the Lord, no matter who's got a knife to our throat, or no matter what the situation is that we think has a knife to our throat. Okay? That's what Peter's trying to get us. Go ahead.
We're told that we're not allowed to be tempted beyond what we can bear.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna allow that to happen. But yet we see things happen. Is it that he'll stop that from happening to you, or he can make you strong enough to take that? That's what we have to question.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of folks that believe they're protected in that way, that these things won't happen to them. When they do, they are the ones that usually leave
Are
out
devastated.
the
Yeah.
fastest. It's
Yep.
some of the strongest people that don't believe in God, which are my minders with the name
Atheists.
for atheists. They're the ones that believe in or practice religion in some way.
Yep. Yep. No, it's hope. I'm hoping this is making us think about what my position is and what do I really feel like and what am I really saying I want to be. And if we're questioning that,
Do you believe there's a test? Because if you don't believe the test is real, it's a lot easier if you're failing the test to just act like the test don't mean nothing, no way.
right, that's cop out. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And even if you're failing the test, you need to realize that there's a Christian response, and it's hard to do
Sure.
sometimes
Because things are tough.
because you want to get your sword and fight.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. Good thoughts. Disciples, question 11. Disciples should live so that at the appearing of Jesus their faith might be found to be what?
Praise, honor, and glory.
Okay. That's what I wrote down. Praise, honor, and glory. At the appearing of who?
Jesus.
There you go. You know, what good is it if we've gone through life and we have or haven't done what God would want us to do and Jesus appears to us and we come up short? It's not good. And so that's what Peter is saying. Hold on to what you got. Stay committed to where you are and never give up following the Lord no matter what. Okay? Now here's one of these simple yes questions then. Is it the same thing as being faithful even unto death?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And I think we're getting the idea here a little bit about what's going on. Now he gets into some personal stuff here as he asks the question, whom do they love even though they had not seen him?
Jesus.
That's us.
Do we?
Yes.
Yes.
Better.
We're supposed to.
Do better.
Well, at least some do. Christ said, blessed are those who have not seen me. When Thomas doubted him, he said,
Yes.
You have seen me. You stuck your finger in my side.
Yes.
Blessed are those who haven't. And
I-
still yet believe.
I get all that. You're absolutely dead on right. My question is, do we?
I do.
Keep his commandments.
Go ahead.
If we keep his commandments, we love him.
Yes.
He said, if you love me, keep my commandments.
Okay.
If you don't, you're a liar, and the truth is not in you.
That's right. That's good. It makes us stand back and look at ourselves, and that's what these questions are trying to help us do that. While we're sitting right here, we can just go down through this, yes, 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 and we got it. My question is, do we? And that's what I want us to think about. We've got to stop right here at question 12 this morning.